In this video, I'll be doing a quick comparison between the Lumix G7 and the Lumix G85. What's up guys, my name is Sam from Live Production Tips and Tools and welcome to my channel. The first thing we're gonna talk about the specs in general and the video quality, okay? So as you can see, I have the two cameras right here. I have bought these two cameras for our church live streaming, and I would say specs wise, they are almost the same. So both cameras can record up to 4K, 30 frames per second. They can also record up to 60 frames per second in 1080p. And both cameras can take pictures. They also have built-in flash. So if you want to use them for, pictures, you can easily use the built-in flash without any issue, even though I don't recommend using this built-in flash if you want to take some nice looking pictures, but if you like, it's a quick picture, it's a quick photo that you need to take and you don't have time to grab an actual flash, this could be useful. It will add an extra light to your scene or to your subject. So let's talk about the stabilization. The G85 has in-body stabilization, which means this camera can easily stabilize if you're shooting handheld or you're shooting, even if you're using a gimbal and you need some extra help from the camera to kind of stabilize your image. You need this in-body stabilization. It makes the image so smooth and nice and stable. But also, if you're using a lens that has optical image stabilization, the camera is going to use both stabilization, the in-body one and the one from the lens, and your image is gonna be very, very stable. The Lumix G7 does not have in-body stabilization. However, it uses, if you're using a lens that has optical image stabilization, your image is gonna be, stable and smooth as well. But I would say if you're using a manual lens that doesn't have optical image stabilization, obviously you're gonna have issues if you're shooting handheld. If you're not shooting handheld, then this should not be an issue. The second thing, the G85 has over the G7, it has a what's called the record limit. So the G85 can record for as long as you want. However, the G7, you would need to every 30 minutes, you have to hit record manually to make sure you don't miss anything. As far as live streaming is concerned, there's no issue, there's no limit or anything, there's no overheating. Both cameras can perform well. They have clean HDMI, and all you have to do is just to make sure you connect your HDMI cable to your capture card. And if you are connected to AC power, then you shouldn't have any problem because you're not worried about the battery dying on you. That's what I recommend every time if you're using these cameras for live streaming. So they both have micro HDMI, which is something that I think is not a big deal because you can easily find the micro HDMI on the market on Amazon. So they both have this kind of HDMI out. Let me just show it to you on the Lumix G7 as well. So this is the micro HDMI. Sensor size, they are all made by Panasonic, and obviously they are micro four thirds, so they use exactly the same lens type. Image quality, almost, I would say fairly is almost the same, okay? Although the G85 obviously is a big brother, so I wouldn't go into details, but I would say for a church environment, recording, it's fairly the same thing, okay? If you using the G7 to record your sermon or live stream, or the G85, image quality should be as close, I would say really close. There's no big difference. The G85 right now costs around $800 and comes with one lens, which is 12 to 60 mm. The G7 costs around $600 or $500 something if you buy it with one lens kit. If you buy it with two lenses, it will cost you roughly about $700 or 650, 70. Okay, keep in mind, if you buy from eBay and you're familiar with eBay, you can always find these cameras used for even cheaper. Okay, so as far as price is concerned, so you're paying roughly $150 more with the G85. Both cameras don't have headphone out if you want to monitor if you're recording your audio. They only have the microphone jack. For the G7, it's on the left side, and the G85 is on the left side as well, but it's close to the HDMI input. You would have for both cameras to kind of listen to your audio before you kind of record it. Kind of do a small recording, listen to it. If the levels are good, then you keep those settings for your recordings. They both have autofocus, same, they're all from Panasonic, and they have flip screens. You know, they are brothers, they are almost the same. Like, honestly, they are almost the same. The last thing that I also wanted to mention is the SD card slot. For the G85, you have the SD card slot on the side. So if you need to change your SD card, you don't need to go through the battery door to kind of get access to SD card. However, for the Lumix G7, you kind of have to open the battery door to be able to access the SD card slot. The weight, the G85 is a little heavier than the G7, and if you can see, if I compare these two side by side, you can see that the G85 is a little bigger, and if you're shooting handheld also, it will be more stable, and you know, just you get a nice grip holding the camera. As for the G7, is a little light. It has a nice grip as well. You know, when you grab it in your hands, you feel stable, no problem. But it's not as heavy as the G85. Okay, but again, these are just small details that may not matter for your church live stream or church live recordings. So now, the question of the day: which camera should you buy? And the answer for me is, it depends on what you want to do with these two cameras. First thing, if you are on a budget, I would say the G7 is cheaper. So if you're on a budget, for $600, you can get two lenses with this camera, and you'll be good for live streaming, recordings without any issue. The image stabilization for me is not a deal breaker. Since most of the time you're gonna be shooting with the tripod, so for me, I don't see it being an issue. And if you're not doing some long recordings, the G7 should be okay. If you're recording for longer than 30 minutes, again, you can always remember to hit record every 30 minutes or take a small break, So that, for me, if you are on a budget, I would say the G7 is the perfect camera for you, because it will do almost, I'll say, 95% of what the G85 will do. Now, if you have a little bit of money and you feel like you want to invest in something a little better, In-Body Image Stabilization, and you think you'll be using it sometimes handheld, and you also care about the record limit, so you don't want to be always trying to remember every 30 minutes, I'll have to hit record. If I miss it, I've missed the footage. Then I would say the G85 is your camera. Again, both cameras perform well for live streaming and recording, so I would say it will really depend on you. The price difference is not that much. If you have a little bit of money and you want more convenience, I would say go with the G85. Then if you want to save money, maybe buy something else with that extra $100, you could use it to buy an extra lens, then I would say go with the G7. Now, if you're doing a multi-camera shoot and you want 2 or 3 angles or 4 angles, then I would say there's nothing wrong with buying both cameras. You can buy the G85 as your A or your main camera and buy the G7 as your B camera. And eventually, if you want to scale up, you can always buy either camera. You can buy 2 G85s and buy G7 for to kind of add to your set. I'll be using these 2 cameras for church live recordings and live streams. But also I've been using the G7 together with my G85s, and the image matches well. They are all from Panasonic. They have same sensor. They use the same lenses. So it would be a good combo to kind of buy these 2 cameras if you kind of want to have a multi-camera setup for your church. And the fact that this camera, the G7, is lighter, it's actually sometimes is good depending on where you want to mount this camera. You may not want to mount this camera on a traditional tripod. They say you want to use it as a GoPro on the drama, or somewhere you want it to kind of be you need a light camera. Then this will be better than the G85, for that matter. So again, it will depend on what you need. Both cameras are great and I personally like them. So go ahead, be creative, assess your needs, and know what you need. I hope I helped you decide, and if I didn't help, please put it down in the comments. I'll be more than happy to give you more information about these 2 cameras. If you want to know more about these 2 cameras, make sure you watch this playlist right here, but also stay tuned because I'll be releasing some more content about these 2 cameras. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you hanging out with me, and I'll see you on my next video. Take care.